How's it going, Nitrosites? It's me, the Nitro General here, and today, welcome to another video. It's not going to be another top 5, it's not going to be another gaming video, which, I'm sorry for the lack of the Blue Star Defense videos out lately. I just haven't had a lot of time to record, and I got another job, and so it's just been a little bit difficult for me to record right now, but as soon as I can, I will. But I did want to make this video because, I love Pokemon. I've been playing Pokemon for 20 years, since Fire Red and Leaf Green were my first games that I played. I was born in 1999 when Red and Yellow came out, but of course I really wasn't old enough to play until I was 4 years old, and when I was 4, I really didn't know how to play those games anyways, but those were my first games, and I still have them. Well, I still have Leaf Green. I don't know where the other ones are, but yeah. So, for somebody who's played Pokemon for as long as me and who loves Pokemon as much as me, competitive Pokemon battling is just something that comes natural just for somebody who wants to do once they get up to this. You've played through so many Pokemon games, everything's the same basically, and you want a new challenge. And for me, the biggest challenge of Pokemon in general are finding strategies to do competitive battling. No, I haven't done a lot for competitive battling. I've done a lot of online battling and battling with friends. I used to do when I was in middle school. I used to bring my DS, and a bunch of friends and I would create different teams and stuff. Now, back then, it really wasn't more competitive Pokemon battling as it was just having battles with friends, because I would just put together different teams. I never, strategized per se. We just had fun, and I, battle with my cousin and stuff, and I do a lot of online battling. I've never actually entered a tournament because I'm actually really afraid that my strategies are not going to be the best. But I love Pokemon battling, and I'm not, going to stray away from saying that I'm not bad at it. I like creating a bunch of teams and seeing which one works, but I do have a few teams, that I settle with, that I do competitive Pokemon battling with online and stuff like that. And one of which is that I haven't really lost a lot with. I think I've lost a few times, but I have it basically set up for double and single battles. So, but I'm not going to be going over those teams in this video. If you want me to make a video on my competitive teams, let me know down in the comments, because I think I have 3 main ones that I use, and then I switch up the other ones. But I wanted to make this video as kind of a homage to my competitive Pokemon battling, and give you guys a lot of tips for creating a competitive Pokemon team. Now, I'm decent at the game, and like I said, I've been playing for 20 years, so I'm going to give you guys some tips on how to create a good Pokemon competitive team. Some of this stuff might come as being duh, but I just kind of want to get it out and explain my reasoning with that. I know I talk with my hands a lot, and I'm talking with it a lot in this video, but I'm very passionate about the subject. I love Pokemon battling. I actually thinking I'm going to enter some tournaments this summer, finally, some Ultra Sun and Moon tournaments. So yeah, so there's a bunch of things that go into creating a good competitive team. Now the first one is oh, sorry, I thought that the thing was on the left side of the screen. So the most prominent one that you're probably gonna be like, duh, is picking Pokemon. There are over 800 Pokemon now, and with the introduction of Sword and Shield, there's probably gonna be 1,000. Close to 1,000, if not 1,000 or more, and I'm super excited about it. So I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with competitive battling in these new games. But the hardest thing for me was always picking a Pokemon. Now, when you're competitive battling, you want to pick. A lot of times they'll have rules, depending on rules. Now the best competitive teams aren't always comprised of just legendary Pokemon, because a lot of times when you go on to battle and stuff, they won't let you have legendary Pokemon in battles and stuff like that. Sometimes they will, certain legendaries they won't, because some are a lot better than others. So a lot of times when it comes to Pokemon battling, it's not fair when you just come in with a Primal Groudon and a Mega Rayquaza and all these other freaking Pokemon you come into a battle with. There's not as much strategy as much as it's just brute force. and that's not really competitive battling. As much as you guys might think, just picking a bunch of legendary Pokemon, going in and defeating people with them is competitive battling. It's really not. Competitive battling is more strategizing with Pokemon. I mean, when you're boxing, you got to strategize when you're boxing. You know, where you hit them, when you hit them, when you block, stuff like that. But if somebody brought a if somebody was stopping anybody from sticking a gun in their pants and then just pulling out pulling out a pistol out of their shorts and shooting the guy, that's gonna beat them. But it's just brute force, and in most of the in most situations, it's illegal. Just like using a lot of legendary Pokemon in a lot of competitive battling situations is illegal, and well, like illegal in the rules of the game. I mean, and obviously, and so it's more of just strategizing when you hit, when you block, stuff like that. So most of the time, you're going to want to use Final Evolution wise of Pokemon. Now there are a lot of exceptions to this rule. Now, of course, there are actually some Pokemon that are better in their pre-evolution form when giving a held item, which I'll talk about the held items later. But there are a lot of Pokemon that can be decent when they're not fully evolved. You know, Piloswine can be pretty good when it's not fully evolved. Porygon 2 can be really good when it's not fully evolved. Sneasel can be really good. So there's a lot of Pokemon, but in certain situations. So I would suggest, unless there are rules against it, go with Final Evolution Pokemon. Sometimes if you give the Pokemon I can't think of the item, what it's called, an item that basically boosts all of the stats of a Pokemon that's not fully evolved. For some reason, I can't think of Eviolite, that's what it's called. It's called the Eviolite. In every game, there's only one you can get in the game, and you give it to a Pokemon that's not fully evolved, and it boosts their stats a lot. So giving in the Eviolite to Piloswine or Porygon 2 or Sneasel boosts their attack a lot. But again, a Sneasel with an Eviolite is still not quite as good as a Weavile. But I actually have heard that Porygon 2 with an Eviolite is better than Porygon Z, but I'm not going to get into that. So most of the time, so you got to pick the Pokemon that are great, not just cute or cool looking Pokemon. A lot of Pokemon that aren't the cutest or the coolest looking are decent Pokemon. Off the top of my head, Tauros, a lot of Tauros and Buffalan, a lot of people, say aren't the cutest or the coolest looking Pokemon. Some people like them, but they are pretty good in competitive battling. But so besides just picking the Pokemon, it's also the type advantages. You want to have a diverse Pokemon team. Have a Pokemon. You don't want to have two of the same type on a competitive Pokemon team, is what I'm trying to say. Dual types are a different story, and if you want to have Pokemon with the same dual type, so if you have like a Shiftry that's dark grass and you have an Absol that's just dark, sometimes that could be okay, but most of the time when you're doing that, you want to stick with different type advantages. And there are a lot of types that are better than a lot of types. For example, Fairy, Dragon, and Steel types are probably some of the best typings in the game. Fairy is unbelievably strong. It's the only thing that's good against Dragon, besides Dragon and Ice. But a lot of times, there's a limited amount of great Ice-type Pokemon. And when you're going up against another Dragon-type with a Dragon-type competitive battling, that's not quite the best situation, because if they outspeed or whatever, then you're probably going to die to a Dragon-type attack. So you want to have a lot of different typings on your team. I would recommend a Steel, Fairy, Dragon Core, their different cores are different. When you have a team, there are always like 3 different types you can have on a team that are always like good against each other. Steel's good against Fairy, Fairy's good against Dragon. Dragon's not good against Steel, but you know what I mean. So like that's a core. Fire, Water, Grass is a core. Fire's good against Grass. Grass is good against Water. Water is good against Fire. There's a lot of cores like that, so you can look that up if you want. So having different types of Pokemon on your team is really good. So you want to have a Final Evolution Pokemon with different types on their team. Having diverse types means that you can have a lot of Pokemon that resist other moves when you bring them in. And that brings me into the second part of the thing that you got to think about is move types. Now, I was always the type of person who liked to have, if I have a fire type Pokemon, I only wanted them to have fire type attacks because, of course, when a Pokemon uses attack that is the same type as it, it powers up the attack. It's called Stab. So if you hear somebody say, "Oh, that move is Stab," that's because it's the same typing as Pokemon. So when Charizard uses Flamethrower, it's going to be more powerful than when Salamence uses Flamethrower because Salamence is not a fire type. So, but a lot of Pokemon can learn different moves. So I mean, you can have like a Hitmonchan that can learn Fire, Thunder, and Ice Punch. Now, of course, they're not going to be stab attacks, and they're not the best, but having something, even like Secret Power, a lot of Pokemon can learn that, but having different types of attacks on different Pokemon means you want to at least have one move on every Pokemon that's the same type as it, so it's super effective. Or stab, I mean. But in a lot of times, you can set up with you can have so much coverage with all these different moves. If somebody sends in a like a, let's say, a Dragonite and against your Hitmonchan because they think that they can use like Wing Attack or Air Slash or something, and you can outspeed the Dragonite and use Ice Punch, that's going to be 4 times effective because it's flying and dragon. So having those diverse moves, having so many Pokemon with all these different moves, I try to have at least almost every type of move on my team, but that's a lot. That's hard sometimes. So you can have so many different coverage against so many different types of different Pokemon. There's also 2 different type of attacks. There are physical and special attacks, and there's also moves that do damage and moves that do not do damage. Physical and special attacks are moves that physically hit the Pokemon. Special attacks are moves that do not physically hit the Pokemon. So when I'm talking about physical, I mean like Sky Uppercut and any move like Punch or Kick or anything like that. And special attacks like Thunderbolt, Flamethrower, Ice Beam, a lot of those type moves. So you want to play off your Pokemon stats. And stats is another thing that you got to watch out for. You know, you have when your Pokemon, if your Pokemon has a higher attack than special attack, like Blaziken per se, you want it's sometimes, even though Blaze Kick might not be as good as Flamethrower, it's better on Blaziken because he has a higher attack than special attack. So when you look at that, it's kind of like, oh, this Pokemon has a really good special attack. I should probably stick with special attack moves and not physical type moves. And so yeah, so you have that. So you got to watch with that, you know. And if your Pokemon has a higher defense than special defense, then when a Pokemon that has a higher defense or higher physical attack comes in, you probably want to switch that out. So you know you'll learn that after you do a lot of competitive battling. You'll come to know what Pokemon is more physical or especially defensive. So when they come in, you're like, oh, I gotta hit this with a special attack. And sometimes it's kind of hard, but a lot of times, a lot of the more popular Pokemon, you get to know. So yeah. So then you also have the moves that don't do damage and the moves that do damage. I was always the type of person who never wanted a move on my Pokemon that didn't do damage unless it was like a status inflicting move, like Hypnosis or Poison Powder or something like that. But a lot of those moves are really good and you can use them to your advantage. Like Swords Dance, that increases your attack. Iron Defense, that increases your defense. So you can get a Pokemon, and once you set up with these moves like Reflect and Light Screen, those both take less damage. So if you have a Pokemon with a really high defense and you use Light Screen, that's going to increase its special defense too. And if you use Reflect, that's going to increase its defense. So a lot of those moves, if you look, you can set up with those moves to make your Pokemon more, heavy hitter or more bulky than it already is when you send it out. So that's kind of, and it's kind of hard because you have to sacrifice an attacking move for a move like that. And there are a lot of moves that I don't really care to use, but I love Swords Dance. I love defense increasing moves. So it's really good when you have these type of moves on there, and there are a lot of these moves that can actually be fairly good in a competitive scene. And it's easier to use these ones when you know what your other what the other player has. Like in certain draft leagues, you know what Pokemon that the other drafted, so you know I gotta have this Pokemon is really really hard hitter, so I should get some defensive moves and stuff like that. But there are a lot of other moves like Swords Dance and stuff like that are just good to have on a Pokemon. So if you just want to set up and sweep, like I have a Blaziken on one of my teams, I always set up two Swords Dances and a double team usually. So he's harder to hit and he's really strong. And that is probably one of my best physical sweepers that I have on any of my teams because he just hits so hard. And with those Swords Dances, it's just really good. So you should look at those other moves that your Pokemon can learn and know that, maybe this will be really good. Stealth Rocks is one of the best moves when it comes to competitive battling. Stealth Rock Spikes and Toxic Spikes are always moves that Pokemon take damage to when they're coming out. If they're weak to Rock type, they're going to take more damage to Flying type to Stealth Rocks than any other Pokemon would. So you have the type advantages, you have stats, you have moves. Now we have a couple more things to talk about before I end this video out. The next one I want to talk about is abilities. Most Pokemon have more than one ability. Now, when a lot of people do that, they they breed for the certain ability to get the hidden ability. Most Pokemon have two abilities and a hidden ability. There are a lot of exceptions to that too, but like a lot of the starters only have one ability and a hidden ability. So if you can breed and get that hidden ability, a lot of times it can be really good. And if you go to like the battle resort, a lot of times in games, you can use your battle points to buy these things called ability capsules. That basically what they do is that they switch your Pokemon's abilities. They won't give your Pokemon a hidden ability, but they will give it its opposite ability. So you can kind of pick to see which ones you want. Some make it so they can't be hit by ground type moves like Levitate or like Sap Sipper. So if they get hit by a grass type move, they restore health. Or Lightning Rod, they will not take damage from electric type attacks. So stuff like that. So when you're competitive battling, you want to check to see what abilities your Pokemon has and how that can be used to your advantage. Because abilities can be one of the best things in the game. Now, another one of the things that a lot of people do when it comes to battling... Actually, I'm going to save this for last because it's a little harder to talk about. But the last thing that you should definitely look for when you're picking a Pokemon is the items that you give the Pokemon. Because like I stated before, items are another huge thing that can be, turn the whole battles. Like I said, the Eviolite is one of the best items in the game. If you give it to a not-evolved Pokemon, increases their stats a lot. There are a lot of other moves or items that are super good. You have the oh, great. It's an orb. It's great. I can't think right now. It has been so long since I played competitive battling because I've been into Pokemon Let's Go and stuff. So it's Life Orb. That's what it's called. So basically what it does is that it increases your attack and special attack with the exception of some HP every turn if you use an attack, which isn't terrible because it doesn't take that much damage, but it also greatly increases your damage types. You can give your Pokemon the Arceus plates too. So every type has their own plate. You give it to a Pokemon and it increases that damage type of that Pokemon. You have moves like the Silk Scarfs and everything like that basically only or like the Choice Specs and everything. So basically limit your Pokemon to only being able to use one move when you set it out, but greatly increases its damage of that one move. You can Scarf a Pokemon that basically increases the attack or speed. So you send a Pokemon out that's just super fast, so you can only use one move. So if you send a Blaziken that's Scarfed, you can speed boost up. He also has speed boost. Speed is super effective. You get some punches in and you're basically going to be outspeeding and defeating everything. So there are a lot of items. I'm not going to try to go over every item in this game, but just keep in mind that if you go down through the list of items that you can get, there are a lot of good items that when you give to a Pokemon can greatly increase its attack. So that is basically everything for this video. I am going to go over one more thing. when you get really into competitive battling, you want to have the best Pokemon. You want to have the best EVs and IVs. Now, EVs and IVs are different types of things that each Pokemon has that increases their stats. So if they have a higher EV and IV, then they're going to have higher stat ranges than if they have lower ones. And there's no way to tell that in the games, but there's a way to calculate it. You can go on to like websites and stuff that have EV and IV calculators, and you can calculate it. Now, a lot of people will breed to get these, the best type with those. I don't typically breed for EVs and IVs. You can also train. You can also get certain items that given to a Pokemon that when training will increase their EVs or IVs. And I should probably get into doing that, but to me, it's just not fun just to keep going until you get that one good Pokemon. Like, I like being able to just get a Pokemon and go. And EVs and IVs, to me, aren't that important. Yes, it can give you an upper edge on the battle, but there are a lot of other things that can determine that. So that's why I say it's not like a need to do is EV and IV train and breed. But you can do that if you want. You can keep hatching a Pokemon in the daycare until you get one that's got extremely awesome stats, and then that'll be the, really, really good Pokemon to use. Or just pick a really good one and then just use the items and stuff to increase its IVs and stuff like that. It's like attack. So you can do that. So that's definitely another thing to do. But that's not personally I do. So that is going to be everything for this video. I really, really hope you guys enjoyed. I wanted to make this kind of my guide to starting a competitive battling team. So if you guys enjoyed this, make sure to leave a like on the video. I'd highly, highly appreciate it. Leave me any questions down below. I'd be happy to answer them for you guys because, like I said, I'm very passionate on the subject. But other than that, guys, subscribe if you're new. I do videos all the time. I do game reviews. I do movie reviews. I do some gaming content. I do Pokemon videos, top 5s, all that kind of stuff. So if you want to, you can hit that bell too so you don't miss one of my videos when I post it. But other than that, guys, I will see you whenever I see you next. Nitro General out. Peace.